Welcome back to Learn to Draw Comics with me, your host, Nick Fights. Here in Lead-Based Studios, we're going to be talking today about a Let's Draw challenge. Someone challenged me to draw male hero with tiger's eyes. First thing I want to talk about regarding tiger's eyes is misconceptions. Now, commonly, a lot of people tend to think tiger's eyes have those sort of two almond-shaped, spiky, pointy eyes, but in truth, those are more or less house cat's eyes. People tend to think of a tiger's eyes and think all of the giant felines still have those spiked pupils, when, in reality, they actually don't. Tiger's eyes pupils do shrink down, and when they shrink down, they do become tiny little slits, but it's almost so barely noticeable, they still look fairly round. So more commonly what people are thinking of when they think of tiger's eyes are domesticated house cat eyes. Regardless, I like the challenge. I'm going to move forward with it. We're going to draw a male hero with some tiger's eyes. So, let's draw. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to establish the shape of the guy's head. Nothing too dynamic. Just going to give myself something with angst, anger, something palpable just radiating out of this character. Because if he's got tiger's eyes, the eyes themselves of a predator like that are designed to focus the light that they're receiving so that they become more of a hunter. They gain tunnel vision. They become so dead focused on what they're hunting down, they just have a dead stare. So I'm going to throw in my cross hairs here so I know about the center of the face. I'm going to want it slightly off center. And I know I definitely want to capture the mood. Of somebody who's extremely angry. So I'm really working with the eyebrows there, all bunched up, mashed down. So all that extra tissue right here is going to be all bunched up and mashed down. So given that the eyes are the window to the soul, they're going to be very important. So without even drawing in the rest of the character, I'm just going to focus on just the eyes here. So I'm not drawing the full circles like I would normally do if I was going for like a full skull look. I'm going to do the full circles, then erase that. I'm just going to stick to an almond shape here going side to side. So like soft, rounded little footballs. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in the actual retinas of the character so that they're nice and large. What someone would be thinking of for the sake of a large cat. So we do have enlarged retinas here. And then if I was to get into that shape of the pupil, the cat's eyes, the way they're thinking, nice big taper there. Now another reason why I started focusing right on the actual eyelids or the brows that are actually, being all mashed together there. Another reason why I'm focusing on those is because the other important thing about a tiger's eyes is the framing of the eye. That bold dark line around the eyes makes the yellow or slight off green color really pop. So I'm going to make sure that even though it's a male character, he's almost going to look like he's got mascara. Because it's really going to frame the actual eyeballs. Really frame the retina there. I'm going to pick a light source. I'm going to go, let's say, top right over here. Light source coming down, so that's where my highlight's going to be on the eye. And I'll do a separate segment later on regarding how to draw eyes. Specifically, today I'm just going to breeze over it. But we know it's a round surface, so if it's a round surface and it's receiving a light source from the top right, that highlight is going to appear on that same top right side. And it's going to overlap the actual pupil, even though the pupil is going to be the dark black spot. So I can go ahead and fill in that dark black spot there and let that highlight cut into it. So you can see it cut into it there. I'm going to fill in the pupil on this side as well. Given the premise that this character is supposed to be like a hero, even Batman has an angry grimace, but I'm going to give him a very bold set of eyes that really pop. Unlike Batman's, always angry, but he detaches from humanity because we don't actually see any pupils. It's just white eyes. So instead, we actually have eyes here. We actually have retinas. So in the same way that people become overly attached to cats, their own domesticated cats, it's because the eyes, they just draw me in. You just cute little pouty eyebrows. You're so sad. Not sad, not even when they're angry and giving someone the death stare saying, feed me, or change my kitty litter. There we go. Now, given that this is supposed to be a character with tiger's eyes, I want to think of an animalistic style snout. I want to think of changing this human proportions. Normally I would break down a face and say halfway between the eyeline and the chin is where the nose would go. Halfway between the chin and the nose is where the mouth will go. Instead, I'm going to bust that up a little bit. I'm going to raise the nose up a bit. And then I'm going to widen the mouth. I'm going to raise up the mouth just a bit too to change that same proportion so it has a bigger chin, very pronounced chin, much like a cat's jowl that hangs down underneath their top lips. Another thing I'm going to do normally with noses, normally your nose would line up with the inner side of your actual eye sockets. So where my nose goes straight up here, you can see almost like a straight line right up to where my actual eyes are. Instead, I'm going to widen that a little bit further. Actually, if I go too wide, that'll almost look more dog-like. Let's narrow it down then. So right about there. So I'm going to narrow it. That'll be more like a cat's nose, very dainty. I'm going to make the nostril shapes on it angle inward. The bottom of the nose is going to be very, very sharp. It's not going to quite rain like a human's nose. It's actually going to have this hard ridge right along the top of it. I'm going to widen the brow line at the top. I'll maybe give a little bit of inclination of the ball shape of the nose as though it's still slightly human. Put some shading underneath it here. Now back to that mouth. That's what I wanted. I wanted the wide mouth, narrow nose. So I'm going to give this person a nice wide grimace. Even give that little bit of a cut in, just on that top lip there. A little bit of that cut in, some shadow on one side. I want to do very, very thinned out upper lip. Very, very thinned out. So that it's almost going to read like a cat's jowl. This little fluffy lips kind of hanging off there. The little crooked corners of the mouth there. Then the lower part, make the lower lip a bit wider or thicker from top to bottom there. So here's my big pronounced chin now. I have all this extra space to work with that chin, and I can work that up into the jawline. Now with cats and felines, they have very strong cheekbones and very narrow jaw. Back here where the actual ears are, their jaw is very well sunk in. So I'm going to give this person very, very pronounced cheeks. And let there be a little bit of tissue overlap out here where the actual jowls at the corner of the mouth, where they stick out so far, they kind of create like a little outline there. And let that jawline sink in behind and curve out to where the actual chin is. Now another thing about felines is their ears are not placed directly on the side of the head. They're more vertical, near the top of the head, same as like with canines. So with that, if I was to draw just regular ears on the side of this person, they'd be a lot lower. If I wanted to make them cat-like and just point the top of them, that's still going to read like someone just put extensions on a regular human ear. So if I want to change the proportions around bad enough, I'm going to push the bottom of the ear all the way up to what would normally be the eye line. Normally, the top of the ear starts at the eye line. So I'm actually going to push that ear up so high, it's going to be up here just off the side of the head. So I'm going to complete this side of the forehead over here, a little bit of a taper in underneath the eyes. So then out here at the eye lines, we're going to be where the bottom of that lobe begins. This should read a bit more like Panthro, if you will, because he had very huge ears on the side of his head. I give a nice wide neck to this character. And I'm going to establish down below about nose to chin height. That's going to be about where my clavicle is. And your clavicle, it's that little divot just here between your collarbones that go from shoulder to shoulder. Illustrate that little bit of jutting part of the throat that comes out outside of these sort of tendons or muscles that run up the side of the neck here and go into these stooping shoulders. Now so far I haven't really put any kind of fur down, but I just have a basic shape. But this is definitely a feline looking hero, and I can do all sorts of things if I still want it to be halfway between a cat person and back and forth. I can dance across that line quite a bit. I can decide to give him more of a human hairline, but maybe I want to taper it, so I show a bit of age and some distinction to this character, so we get the idea that he's not just a young boy tiger hero. And to give him something like a fierce look, we can give him almost a very military style crew cut or something. So much like Tiger's hair kind of goes out and does like the Wolverine thing, which I could probably do if I took my headset off. I could probably spike my hair out to the sides. So it'll look like a mix between a crew cut, almost look like a crew cut, and Guile's hair. And of course give a couple of loose ones going off any which direction. And then for the top, I'm really just going to establish a fairly basic shape. This fairly basic shape is going to consist of looking similar to almost like Logan's hair, but I'm going to have the back of it line up as well and furl even down the neck of it. So as you can tell on that side, there's a little bit of jaggedness. And all I'm doing, I'm just recreating this little zigzag shape, just repeating the same pattern over and over again, just swooping zigzag stuff. Now up here at the top, I want to give the illusion that the fur is actually combed back, similar to an actual tiger's mane. So that repeated motion I keep creating, I'm going to follow a specific flow with it, so it looks like it's actually coming up from a specific hairline. And as I cut out to that side, it starts to part and change direction. I really frame it with a lot of shadow on the outside of it. And again, there's the almost like a lion's mane kind of running down. Now I could do some stuff with the eyebrows. I'm going to do his eyebrows almost in chunks, like actual bits of fur growing separately like tiger stripes. But mainly I'm just sort of following this kind of pattern. So if these are his eyebrows, I'm following that pattern, I'm just breaking it up. I'm deciding to put in some hair along that path, and yet not a whole lot of it. So on the actual sketch itself, there we go. Now for the sake of the actual tiger stripes, I'll make sure to finish his actual eyelids, or his brow that's at least mashing down, and I'll just start putting in some stripes around the eyes. Now natural tiger camouflage, it's trying to blend into a whole bunch of weeds. And yet they're not solid stripes. they're very jagged, very mixed match. So what they do is they play off of the highlights and the shadows of the environment around them. Well, it's really strange that if you look at a lot of domesticated cats or tigers, they have like this weird upside down pitchfork thing on their forehead. I'm going to follow the contour line with these jagged lines down here. Follow the contour line of that upper jowl. And I'm going back and forth trying to keep them balanced. So however many stripes I tend to put on one side, I'm going to match that for the other side. And as I go away from the chin, I'm going to thicken them up, just so I sort of frame the center of the face. The center of the face should be a lot thinner lines, and then all these stripes, as I start getting to the outside of the face, will become a lot thicker, and that'll really frame the face. So I'm just throwing on stripes, not being too harsh with it. Now follow some kind of stripe patterns around the neck here, and again working with the actual contours so we can still see the shape of the tissue as it's kind of wrapping up and around the neck. And then I would have these stripes starting to go down into what would be like a lighter colored area. Because tigers' bellies have a whiter underside and an orange top. And give them like a fuzzy exterior. Instead of it just being sleek, smooth skin, give them like a fuzzy exterior. So then these shadows that would play off these shapes here, make them look fuzzy too, so they don't look solid, so they don't look too fleshy. So although this was basically a male hero with cat's eyes, I just kind of turned it into an overall cat-human kind of hybrid with a bit of Wolverine hair dash to it. And if I did want to break from that stigma of this looking like Wolverine, I could continue that pattern and actually put some stripes into his hair, make him look almost like Tigra from the Thundercats. 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 Thundercats ho. So there's all kinds of stripes going in there now. Almost starting to lose his ears, so I'm going to drop some shadows into his ears, make those pop out. There we go. So that was kind of my Catman sketch for today. It's supposed to be just a male hero with cat's eyes. I'm just going to come in here and again embrace the eraser. Embrace it. Just get rid of the lines I didn't need, all the construction stuff. Get right in there. Although he's a tigery kind of guy with some stripes, and don't need all the extra lines. So that should be good enough. That's nice and cleaned up. I can erase my light source too. I don't need the circle on there. Alright, so again, this is our final sketch. Hope you've enjoyed drawing a male superhero here with tiger's eyes. Again, not too hardcore of a tutorial specific for eyes, but just an overall sketch as to how my thought process goes, taking a challenge like male hero with cat's eyes. Never be intimidated by the heroes or the characters that you want to draw, because they're all basic shapes. So I hope you had fun. Stick around for more videos, as I have a whole lot more on board coming up in the future here at Learn to Draw Comics in Lead Bay Studios with me, your host, Nick Fights. Don't forget to draw!